I don't agree with this defense of Aaron Rodgers by Jordy Nelson. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is celebrated throughout the NFL.
Yes.
There's far more praise of Aaron Rodgers than there is this little bit of criticism from a handful of his former teammates. So if we were weighing a scale between Aaron Rodgers getting praised and criticized, it leans heavily on praise. And so 3 guys have had the courage to come out and say what they think about Aaron Rodgers in a little bit more detail. This isn't because negativity sells. It's just 2 or 3 guys have had the courage to say what they really think.
Yeah, he actually said what he knows will sell, which is negativity sells. And I'm just going to sit here and say none of it is negative about Aaron Rodgers, which has to be a lie because no player is perfect. And if you want to add it up in totality, more people are for Aaron Rodgers than the exceptions that we're talking about. But let's talk about those exceptions because the narrative is, as a former player, all you guys want to do is protect the fraternity and say glowing things about each other. I remember when I first started working in this industry, everyone was scared, like, will you really go there if you need to? Will you ever just tell the truth about the underbelly of the game and some of the dark places that you've been with some of your players? I'm like, I'm just going to speak my truth. I'm never going to call somebody out. And even when you're going through that process of actually calling someone out, as a former player, you're making sure you're saying all the right things and saying exactly how it went down because you know that you're trying to pay respect to someone who's still great in other lights. So for Jordy Nelson to come out here and try to extinguish everyone, especially KGB, because I've known KGB since he was in high school. This guy has great character, went to Crenshaw High School, lives in Green Bay. I mean, just it says enough. Family man, like he is out.
Greg Jennings, same thing you can say.
Yeah.
Same thing about Greg.
Living in Minnesota. These guys are not in Hollywood trying to capitalize on Aaron Rodgers or saying salacious stuff about former players. So which way is it? Is it, they're trying to sell negativity? I thought all players just want to say glowing things about each other. I think these exceptions actually had bad experiences with Aaron Rodgers. They're just telling their truth.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers, they speak the same language. They see the game the same way. So they got along. So Jordy Nelson is like, why don't everybody see the Aaron Rodgers that I see? Mm-hmm. Because we view things differently. Their conversations are different than the conversations he had with Aaron Rodgers.
I disagree. I think that Jordy Nelson probably knows there's some problems with Aaron Rodgers. He's just saying you don't have to talk about them.
But if you ask him in Jermichael Finley, it's when a former player criticizes a quarter, it's like what Marcellus, like, you're not supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you the honest answer. And for Jordy Nelson, I don't think he saw Aaron Rodgers as that guy. Because if Aaron Rodgers is getting on you or he's not a leader as you see fit, to Jordy Nelson, it's like, what he's saying is right. I have no problem with it. Whereas somebody else, the conversations he could have had with Greg Jennings or things that rubbed Greg wrong, Greg looked at it as he's not being a leader. Could be the same with Jermichael Finley. He probably had those same conversations with Jordy Nelson, and Jordy Nelson didn't take offense to him because him and Aaron Rodgers have a different relationship.
But let me clarify, and I don't want to speak for Greg, but, look, Greg emotes positive energy.
Yeah.
Greg could come on this show and do an hour about what great shape I'm in and then say, but he could stand to lose a few pounds.
The last 30 minutes.
Yeah. That's Greg's nature.
Yeah.
And so he's a lot like what Marcellus described about KGB. This guy looks for positive and says a lot of positive things about Aaron Rodgers. He just also says a more complete story of Aaron Rodgers is like there are some issues. He is aloof. He is maybe not the greatest leader. I think Jordy Nelson sees the same things, but just says, you know what, you shouldn't talk about it.
Exactly.
So he's willing to overlook it and just say, I'm going to sweep it under the rug. I don't want to talk negatively about.
He doesn't want to talk in completion. And we know being in the fraternity that sometimes, like coworkers, anybody, do you always want to talk in being transparent in completion of the entire story? I played with 6 future Hall of Famers and present Hall of Famers. And their highs are already known. Their lows, some are known and some are not known. Now, are you going to be that population that has been silent for so long, the hundreds of teammates that Aaron Rodgers has had that has not said a word, good or bad? We don't know what they're thinking. So, Jordy Nelson, how dare you try to extinguish the 3 that have come out and said something that's more of a completion of his personality, not just the good stuff.
I'm going to set us up for our next segment by saying this. I'm going to analogize Aaron Rodgers to LeBron James. There's so much positive to their talents and their abilities and blah, blah, blah. But I think what Greg and others are responding to is like everybody every year says, oh, Aaron Rodgers ain't got no help. He can't win. He does everything he can. And all of his teammates, this, that, and another. And then someone says, well, you know what? He got some shortcomings too.
Yeah.
Same thing with LeBron James. Anytime they don't win, it's everybody else's fault. Yep. And then if someone says, well, you know what? LeBron's not the best leader, or he could improve here or there. Now all of a sudden you're looking for the negative. No, you're just responding to someone like Aaron Rodgers or LeBron that just get overwhelmed with praise. And then a guy like KGB or Greg Jennings say, well, you know, there is a full story.
Yeah.
Paul Harvey, now for the rest of the story.